United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We got a number of presentations tonight. So let's start with social studies.
Hello, I'm Mr. Carlson. I teach government and economics and psychology here at CA at the high school. Recently, as far as the social studies is concerned, this year we've combined, like many of the departments, 7 through 12. These slides were created by Deb Tater, and I'm going to discuss those slides a little with you this evening. On the clicker. So, you guys okay? Tracy Watson had a member of the Mohawk tribe come in, Corey Francis. She spoke to folks from the high school, some students from the high school over in the cafeteria. Tracy felt, among others, that it was very much an overwhelming success. Deb had the 7th graders creating a culture of care wall, and they put together some 6-foot memoirs. Many of us, not just the social studies, we had some good meetings with Belinda Soto on diversity, equity, and inclusion in regard to social justice standards. Mr. Hughes is going to talk to us in just a moment about our local history. Deb wanted to mention, as far as joining the community with students and collaborating together with the community and the impact the community has on the school and the symbiotic relationship between those. The National Junior Honor Society is pitching in to help on the wall. Mr. Wilberg is in charge of that. In regard to that, trying to open up, trying to get more kids included as far as after hours, after school hours and weekends, trying to get kids to be more part of that. Ms. Watson has her U.S. Civil War project. I know, Tracy, very often you have a lot of decorative posters created by the students, very often to show up in the classroom. 7th grade government research project for government and economics. I do a mock Congress where the students act as senators and representatives. They are obligated to put together a presentation and take a stand on an issue. In regard to that, they try to persuade their audience, class, Congress, to feel the same way that they do, and they also create a bill or a piece of legislation with that. Economics, we are looking to create a marketing project and take a slant in advertising in regard to developing an existing or a new product or service. Cross-curricular project between the 9th grade, researching world problems. And Greg Mr. Hughes is hoping to possibly visit the World Trade Center Memorial in the fall. So a couple of things in the crystal ball here. Possibly the 7th grade looking to go to Forsyth, Ticonderoga. Big piece here, and a lot of hope here for the 7th grade end of the year in an overnight cross-curricular trip to Boston to Plymouth. And Ambassador Krzyzewski and the social studies at ELA are coming in for a 3rd year to do some collaborative work with the students and talk about Middle Eastern culture and conflict. And we're also hoping to get Congressman Delgado back again to have a little bit discussion with our students. Questions, comments, concerns? I'm going to invite Mr. Hughes up. He's going to talk a little bit about
Good evening, everyone. It's been a while since I spoke to you at a board meeting, but it's nice to see all of you. So I was asked, I think it was middle of summer, to take on a new elective course for the high school. We're calling it the local history course. And it was actually very exciting, but also a little bit of overwhelming when I was given this opportunity, because it's a course that really does not have a set curriculum. It's not one that has like a regents or something like that you have to follow. So I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this course? I mean, local history, of course, but you can do a lot of different things with a course like that. I mean, which direction to go and all that. So I decided that I needed something to root the course in. So I went in the direction of making this a project-based, research-based course where the students will actually be taking the course much like a course you would take as in college with an upper division history, where you're actually learning how to do research and research writing, going through historical artifacts and different types of archives. So it's not just them learning local history, which of course they are, but they're also learning some really important skills of research and going into historical archives, either at museums or different libraries. So that's the approach. Now the course, I decided to set up with two projects to kind of ground the class. The first one, I wanted to make sure that the course did have a pretty good part of Indigenous Studies. So they learn about the Native people of this area and what their experiences were like, and well before any colonization of North America or South America. So that's the first part of the class. And then the second part is post-colonial, so after colonization, learning about the history of this area, especially Coxsackie-Athens and the school district area. Who were here first, why is this town even here? And there's many different avenues to go in that direction. So the projects, I also wanted to make sure that these projects weren't going to be projects that they were going to do within the classroom that I would see and maybe posted on the wall or something like that. I wanted these projects to have real world applicability, meaning that they would be public projects. So I was thinking the history wall, which is something that Mr. Rover has been working on. I could do some of the projects could, help and complement that, but also the school newspaper. Or there's also many areas in this community that could have historical markers, and there's a whole process that goes into creating a historical marker. So I thought it'd be really kind of cool to have the students go through the process of researching and writing up a proposal for different historical markers in our area, and they would have that for a lasting memory, even far beyond when they leave the school. But I also found when I was researching and doing the work for this class, there's this website called the Clio, and I'm going to talk to you more about this website, but it's a very cool website, and actually that is what my students have been working on in the last semester. So I'll show you their work in a little bit. Of course, the cool thing about this class is I have my students working with historians, archaeologists, different scholars, librarians, and museum professionals. So they're not only working amongst themselves, but I've done some outreach and I have them working with different professionals in the historic field. So they're getting a nice, well-rounded, education, not just, learning about, like I said, the local history. And they get this demonstrate their knowledge, like I said, in these real world public type of projects. So I was able to make a connection with the New York State Museum and Kate Morehouse, which is the museum instructor. Her role is really to be a liaison between schools and museums, and she's incredible. So I've done a couple virtual field trips. Unfortunately, this is in the way, so you can't see that, but they're actually watching the screen and she's doing a presentation on some of the sites in the museum, and they can interact and ask questions. So we were able to do a nice field trip right from the classroom. And not only has she done the field trip, but she's also introduced them to the some of the archaeologists that work in the museum, and they were able to get a lesson on how you look at artifacts and, you know, catalog them and, you know, get information from them. So they're working with archaeologists too. So it's like, it's pretty incredible. And she's given them special access to some of the museum archives that you wouldn't normally get to have access to. So some of the projects that we're working on, they are able to use those archives to do their research. Also, our own Jonathan Palmer from Greene County, alum from CA, he's been more than generous with his time. He's been able to help the students get some of the archives and documents from the Better Library, which has helped them with their projects. And I'm also setting up a field trip, which is actually going to be next Thursday, where the students are going to go to the Bronx House and the Better Museum or the Better Library, and they're going to look through the archives and be able to do some of their research utilizing those artifacts and those documents. So that's exciting, and I got to, you know, I definitely have to thank him for being so generous. He's been more than accommodating. All right, so I want to show you the project that they've been working on, and it has, and what it's been revolving around is this website called the CLIA. So first we'll click on this just to show you the general website. So this is a website that you can have either as an app on your phone, or you can go to their website and just say you happen to be here in Coxsackie and you want to know, oh, is there any historical significant places that you know, I might want to, you know, check out because I'm a big history person and I want to see what's going on here. So you scroll down a little bit, it'll show you like all over the map, you know, different places. And the cool thing about this is a lay historian, not, doesn't have to be, you know, a professor from a college or what have you, can make entries. Now they are vetted after you submit them, but anyone can do this. And in fact, colleges, a lot of times with their upper division classes, will have their students make entries for this in their local area. So I reached out to the gentleman who created this site. And I said, well, have you ever had any high school students do this? And he said, we had a few. It has to be the right type of student to do it. But I said, oh, I'm going to give it a shot and see if my students can handle this. And so far, they've done very nicely. So I'm going to, if you can go back to the main and the second link. So the students, we decided, like I said, the first project was going to be on Native Americans, indigenous people of this area. And there's plenty of that in Greene County and even in our school district. And many of you, or all of you, are probably familiar with Flint Mine Hill. Well, Flint Mine Hill is called that because on that hill is a very important archaeological site where, right from prehistoric times, the flint from that hill has been utilized for making weapons and tools. And it actually is an archaeological dig that's been was discovered. Well, I'm going to let you know because the students did this whole write-up and just, you know, I'm going to hit this audio right here. So that's the intro, and then if you scroll down a little bit, it puts the actual location on the map, and then they can post photos that go along with the site, and then and then they can give a really in-depth, and this is where a lot of the research came in. If you keep scrolling down, he did a long research paper on this, so it's much more detailed. So the intro just gives you the general, and then these students had to go into much more detail using the research. So the nice thing about doing a project like this is they get real in-depth knowledge about a topic, but also they have to learn about all the peripheral information. So they're learning all these different things about the Native people who lived here. The next project they're working on is they're going to research some of the historic buildings in historic Reed Street, so just downtown, and they're going to do a write-up similar to this for some of those buildings down there, and maybe create like a walking tour. So that's anyone that goes down there, they say, oh, what's this building all about? Now, we know with the 150th anniversary, they did that, but now it'll be on a digital website. So I'm very proud of them so far, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, no questions.
So how many kids are in here?
So unfortunately, there's only three, well, there's three that are there in the classroom and two that are doing it somewhat remotely. And I think the big issue was that because it was new, the students, it didn't line up with their schedules. I think as word of mouth gets around, I'm sure that the class will grow.
Well, I want to personally thank you because I know I made, and I think the board did, a commitment when we talked about the mascot, that part of this was going to be about helping kids learn about the people that lived here before us. And Dr. Houlihan had mentioned to you way back that you were interested in that you were going to develop this class, this course. So this is really terrific, and I'm sure it'll get legs, you know, and people will be interested. But this is the kind of thing that I think is important to the community too. That Mr. Wilbur, I know you're working on the wall. Ms. Watson I went to the presentation that you had person come in for. It was really excellent. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And Mr. Carlson, thank you. All this group stuff.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Physical education update.
They're already trying to hook you up to stage.
Hello, everybody. Starting out here, I want to introduce you to our fabulous PE department. We have Michael Poach, who's been at CA for 28 years, and he's primarily down at EJA. This year, he's up in the middle school as well as here in the elementary school. Myself, I've been here for 18 years, primarily in the middle school. Jackie Cashin, who is not here right now, but she is the high school physical education teacher. Jacob Caldwell, who's been here for 5 years, and he is currently in the elementary school here, CE. Sarah Wood-Blarzik, who has been with us for 4 years in the middle school. Jillian Urbanowitz, who this is her 3rd year, and she is teaching health education. She was doing a little bit of PE prior, but primarily health education now. And then our rookie, Jerry Matarazzo, who is in his 1st year and in the high school PE. Jake Caldwell is going to talk real quickly about elementary PE.
Keeps reminding me that this needs to be quick. I don't know why I need that. The expectations on elementary physical education, I feel like they mount up every year that I'm here, but I think I can speak for Mike and myself when I said we're doing a pretty good job here at CA. We've got, you know, basic skills, we've got fitness, we've got character education, sportsmanship. In both of our cases, we represent one of the only males in the building, which comes with its own set of responsibilities. And we're doing it from ages 4 or 5 up to 10, sometimes 11. And that's a pretty big span of needs And so at each level, we have a lot to develop, and that's why our days have so much variety, our classes have so much variety. Day in, day out, week in and week out. We talk twice a week about what we're doing and constantly bounce ideas off each other. But you can flip through some of the pictures here. So, yeah, we created. Sorry. I mean, here's just like a good idea of things that we're constantly working on. Some of them have to be reiterated over and over and over again, year after year, and they're developed on. You know, we've got, like, there's fitness concepts in there, there's skills in there, there's sports skills. We're working in things like outdoor activities like snowshoeing and rock climbing and ice skating. That's what that is right there with the he's not here, Mike did that, it's really right there with the ice skates. Hand-eye coordination, fitness, some of our fitness challenges down there. There's a long list of stuff that we have to get done in a given year, and so it's go, go, go. At the same time, we're that break from sitting in a chair, sitting at a desk most of the day, and that, you know, is something we have to keep in mind when we have the kids as well. A lot of social emotional learning goes on in physically active settings, and that's on us, and we're hitting all of it. We really are. Day in, day out, collaborating with our fellow teachers, working in science and math and other concepts into our lessons to support the learning from the classroom. So we've got a lot on our plate, and we're stepping up to the challenge to get it done.
All right, I'm going to speak about middle school.
Can I ask a question while we're there?
Sure.
So I know that the trail here on this campus is being used for snowshoeing.
Yes, it
Yes.
was.
Yes, so do we have that opportunity at EJA as well? Are we able to offer
No,
that
the
there?
snowshoeing at EJA.
No, we don't do that on the.
No, do we have your conversations? Do we have plans to, you know, offer equal opportunities in both buildings? I know there used to be a trail at
It
EJA.
used- I was gonna say it used to be,
I'd
yeah.
love to see that.
Yeah, they tend to have different emphases in different campuses.
And I will say that that's one of the most physically demanding weeks or 2 weeks of my year, putting snowshoes on and taking them off with kids all day long. It's a lot. And
Now you have empathy for the kindergarten teachers.
What's that?
Now you have empathy for the kindergarten teachers.
Yeah, times two all day, like, yeah. It's a lot. It's something that I do it, but sometimes I think they really like it and it's fun. But it is physically a big ask of both myself and any aides I have, when I'm lucky enough to have. So I'm gonna keep in mind.
Well, you started it, so maybe.
Yeah, it's my own fault.
Middle school physical education, what we're trying to do there is, obviously, we want to grow from the elementary up to the middle school, and start incorporating more cooperative games, team games, introducing to a couple of team sports, and so on. I mean, I think that I'm in a position at the physical education, at the middle school with Sarah and Poach, who we have the luxury of having the kids that really enjoy being there and are starting to grasp some of the concepts that we're teaching. And it helps develop and advance and makes our job fun. Some of the things that we obviously want to do, the importance of it is promotes a link to the healthy lifestyle, increases the physical activity that may improve the academic performance of many of the kids. Now you're starting to get into sports at 7th and 8th grade with modified sports, so we're linking that combination, building upon that. We start to allow students to implement fitness and strength in their daily weekly routine. As they start to get to the 7th and 8th grade, we start to introduce them a little bit to the weight room and build off of that. And couple other things that just basically the fostering of the cooperation, the sportsmanship, and promoting the team building. I think that's the most important there. Moving on, you can see some of the things that we do, from softball to pickleball, to flag football, to badminton, field hockey. We have a variety of activities that we perform and that we try to include throughout the year. Here are a few pictures that we have. These are from our recreation unit, part of it, and the other part is from where we were incorporating games that were incorporating the Winter Olympics. So there were a few different things there, as you can see in the pictures. High school education, physical education, the purpose and quality of physical education program is to emphasize enjoyable participation in physical education activities. We really wanted to, and we got Mr. Burl on board this year in dividing up for next year age appropriate physical education. So we are going to work with the counseling department and Mr. Burl and get 9th and 10th graders scheduled together and 11th and 12th graders scheduled together. We feel that that is important for the development of a lot of these kids and also just the socialization of a lot of the kids and participating in PE. We found that a lot of them feel more comfortable being around their peers, their friends, than a 9th and a 12th grader being in the same class together. Some of the sports that we have done very similar to our middle school PE, but elaborating a little bit more on some of the rules and some of the competition level, and also incorporating life sports, team sports in the 11th and 12th grade. So we're starting to introduce them to things that they can carry on throughout their life and try to be active in. Here's a few pictures. And then we have Jill, who would like to speak a little bit about the health education because she is our primary health education teacher.
Hi, basically what I try to do is provide students with the correct and up-to-date information in order to make positive choices about their health. A lot of the middle school level, we do project-based assignments, and high school is more so individual, but then group discussion after. We are offering 2 health electives next year, which are going to be college credit. There's going to be nutrition and wellness, which is going to have an emphasis on stress management, and then critical issues in health, which will have an emphasis on self-improvement.
Perfect. For you guys, the types of activities you can see through there, and then these were some pictures that she had posted to our slide, some of the projects that she has done in her class. And I'll skip over this. This is for another day. But what I do want to introduce is a new program here, which is called Platform. Sarah applied for a grant through the cafe and was rewarded with a stipend to give us money to start this program up, and it has already been seeing great dividends. Sarah, want to talk about that?
Hi, I'm Coach W, easily known as from the middle school. We applied for the cafe grant, and it's an app, so it could be on your mobile device or your iPad, and we found that across especially 7th and 8th grade, they really have no idea about anything in the weight room, but a lot of them are excited about it. And then we try to bring kids in. Fitness is becoming more of a thing, and obviously it's our focus for what we do every day. Bringing kids into the weight room, but still not having general knowledge. So just expanding based off of what we teach them. And basically it creates a program off of their interests. So if they're interested in weight training or strength training, they can get that. If they're interested in yoga or mindfulness, they can get that. There's advanced options, and we can guide them through the programs that are going to help them. But ultimately, it's these pre-created programs, and we as teachers can go through and also add to the program. And it gives us instant feedback from the teacher perspective. So if they're in a fitness unit, we can see exactly what they're doing. We're holding them accountable. It's on them to perform the weight training or whatever assignment is given to them. And then from a coaching standpoint, we've really benefited because a lot of us, myself included, are trying to get our athletes to weight train and strength train in the off season. So as a coach, we can give it to them and it's on them, and we might not meet at the same times all the time, but we can see directly what they're doing, if they have weights at home, if they're out on the track, or if they're doing anything on their own as well as in the fitness center. We have all that access, and the data that it provides has been huge from a fitness standpoint. And it also allows students who may not be your standout athletes to find something to strive to, and it shows that they're achieving. And we've had some kids who don't typically like the gym or have never even been in the weight room who have continued to come because it's something for them to be excited about, and they're seeing a lot of progress too, which is also helpful.
And the goal of platform is once we kind of find our way with it and work out some of the wrinkles and start to incorporate it and then pass it on to staff here at CA so they can utilize it as well. So that is our physical education presentation. I want to thank my staff for coming here today. I think it's very important and I want to recognize them. So thank you very much for being here.
Take questions?
Yeah, sure, guys. I got what?
The fitness trail that the cafe contributed to a number of years ago seems to be in disrepair. Is there any commitment in the future to get that back up? Is there a need for more funds?
So that is on the to-do list. So that is going to be a project that we are going to invest our time in coming this spring. Once it gets a little bit nicer out. And we have already started talking about it in our PLP meetings about how to attack this. So we're going to start with like seeing what needs to be done. Do we need to move anything around? And then add signage, I think would be nice. And then also little touches on it, you know, adding some of the school colors to the stations instead of just letting them kind of blend in with the background. So we are going to be looking more into that soon.
Kurt, are we gonna, also, you know, the trails that are,
Yes.
that are, you know, cross country and biking and disc golf course, I don't know if you guys heard that. That's something that we're talking about bringing in. Some of those fitness trail apparatuses, there's gonna be places to relocate them when that gets redone, which I assume you guys are aware of. Some of the updates that are happening to the trails, and this is why we need more than that than I can. But as a cross-country coach and the disc golf guy, I can tell you, there's a lot of commitment from a lot of both PE, admin, and outside sources to that space, and some of that fitness trail equipment is gonna go in there.
Great, thanks for that. And this one, I think, was out to Jill in health. Diet is very important, nutrition is very important with our kids' health. Is there any, would there be any, can you go into a little more detail on nutrition and how that will be studied or explained to?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that Susan Kashaj actually does a actual nutrition class. So she does cover a lot of that in her elective class. More so for them to get the college credit, we're going to focus on nutrition and wellness and how it affects their stress and ways to manage it that way.
Will there be collaboration between the
Yeah,
teachers?
Susan and I have collaborated before, and I'd be more than willing to do it again.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Well said.
We had talked to Kurt about way back, with again with the mascot, but if there were a way to get some markers on the trails, like
Yeah.
historical markers, and I heard Mr. Hughes was talking about his group maybe working on those. I wonder if might be some collaboration that might.
Yeah, naming some of the trails.
Yeah,
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 I think that would be a great idea.
yeah. No, yeah, we had talked about that, so that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. We're doing that first. There we go. So this will be pretty brief and quick here because we only have a few sports for the winter. I just want to start out by thanking the coaches that participated in the winter sports season this year. I feel like they did a tremendous job. We had a bunch of new coaches this year as well. But I want to recognize them, and we'll do that in the slides. And the first one we're going to talk about is boys basketball program. This year we had Dennis Kiefer, who was the varsity coach with his 5th year. The overall record wasn't there, but he definitely had a young, inexperienced team that he was working with. I felt like he helped them. The wins weren't there, but the growth I feel was. Craig Panay, who's been in his 5th year and will be his final year here at CA as a JV basketball coach. He took on 13 kids this year, which was quite a bit, but I think that he did a tremendous job in growing, because in the beginning he had to kind of find his way with so many kids, and then once they kind of settled in, he was able to lead them to a nice winning streak towards the end of the season and definitely some growth within the basketball program. And our modified basketball coach is Jerry Matarazzo, was his first year here. He brought over some education or from experience from his prior school. He was in a situation where he felt like this was an opportunity to take kids on that wanted to be a part of the program and figure it out. It's not about wins and losses so much in the modified program as it is about the experience and trying to make sure that we are growing the sport here at CA. Some of the highlights that they had, they talked about was like an overtime victory in Rensselaer, senior night here versus Germantown, and then the Patroon Conference tournament, which was our first year having the Patroon Conference tournament this year in sports, and then getting a win in that. And then obviously the growth of the JV program. Our next sport is the bowling program. Mary DiStefano is in her third year here. She took it over from Matt Nash, who did a tremendous job, and Mary's carrying that right along. This year she had only a couple of returners. It is pretty much a brand new team. As you can see, 11 players were receiving their varsity letters this year. And this was a year of experience and growth and trying to teach them the sport. But she did a great job there and incorporated them nicely. Girls basketball program, Sarah Wlodarczyk is in her 5th year here. She has taken this program by the horns and basically turned it around. I don't know if you remember prior to her, but we were struggling to find consistency, and she has brought that. She was able to have an 11-11 record this year. She made it to sectionals this year, which was fantastic. She had an all-star on her team, Riley Sitzer, a second-team all-star. But one of the big things for me, I was proud about was making sure that we were able to field 3 teams this year. And we were able to do that. We brought on Billy Brott, his first year coaching the JV basketball team. Yes, they were not successful. You don't really expect too much out of the wins losses when you're really starting that back up. It was really about the experience that those girls were getting and just learning the game of basketball, which probably was, this year was probably the year they learned the most out of any year. And then modified basketball, we brought one of our own back. He used to be a former coach here at the girls level, varsity program, getting him back involved. He's an asset to the program. It was his first year. He had a high number of participants, and he did a great job incorporating them, getting them involved, and also teaching them the game, and had a pretty good overall record for a bunch of girls that are learning to really be competitive for the first time outside of like a PAL basketball. Some of their highlights, we talked about the varsity girls basketball team finishing 500 overall, making it to the sectionals, the JV having a season, and then really the growth of the new players within the program. And then modified had a 16 winning streak this year, which was really nice for them. Next is the boys volleyball program. Ethan Van Slyke has taken on his 2nd year as at the helm. And I will say that he had some expectations this year of having a team that had a lot of seniors. I thought he did an overall a pretty good job. They did finish the year very strong. So I saw a lot of growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, kind of trying to figure out who they were and what they were about. But it all came together at the very end, and they were able to win the Section 2 championship here, which is a big deal. So congratulations to him. And you had Lance Hoover and Brandon Morehouse were our 2nd-team all-stars for him. And we had a modified team. Lucille Mazzillo is her 3rd year here, and she's doing a terrific job in growing that sport and getting those kids ready for the next level. Some of their highlights were senior night versus Glorysville. Came down, they were down 0-2, came back to win it. It was a hard fought season, but the boys winning the Section 2 title. And then the modified having 15 members on the modified squad and really continuing to grow. The wrestling program by one of our own here, Ryan Palmer. This is his 5th year here. He had a tremendous season overall. He's continuing to build this program and put CA on the map for wrestling. He's had a 20-2 overall record, 8-0 and won the league. He was also the Section 2 Class C champion. That makes 2 Class C champions in our winter season, which was a tremendous feat. And he also had a few first and second team all-stars, Riker Cox, Neil Murphy, first team, Gage Decker, Skylar Caringi, Joe Martinez, Anthony Mayo, and Hunter Donovan were the second team all-stars. He had a couple coaches on the JV level with Jason Warren and Mike Ferrand. Mike Ferrand is a teacher here, first year. Jason's in his 3rd year. And then modified wrestling, he had a co-teaching group or co-coaching group, I should say. And that was Andrew Wager and Kyle Crawford. Crawford was his first year here, and Andrew will be stepping away this year. He did a tremendous job for Ryan in that wrestling program. Some of the season highlights, 3rd consecutive year representing the CA in the state tournament, 3rd conference championship in as many seasons. Program first was the Section 2 Class C team championship. And they were the best Section 2 Division 2 runner-up finish. And basically Ryan also got Coach of the Year for Section 2 and Patroon Conference. So congratulations, Ryan, on that feat. One of the things that I've added to our presentations, as you know from the fall season, is I like to compare our Greene County schools as far as who's turning out athletes and where we're at, right? So if you're looking at the numbers right now, those are the teams that are offered across the board for all the schools in Greene County. We have the most athletes again participating, and I'm very proud about that, fact. We were head and shoulders above in the fall season. Right here, we are pretty neck and neck with Greenville, but we are doing a good job getting our athletes out there and getting kids involved. Injury report, we don't really have to worry about. And then, oops, let me go back to it real quick. Just a couple points that I just wanted to make out. We are getting more school employees involved, and I think that makes a big difference within our school and with our kids and with our program. We had 8 coaches that were involved this year, head coaches, I should say. And I wanted to point that out to make sure that this is hopefully a continuing trend. Our athletic facilities, a couple things I just wanted to point out there. We had the middle school gym, and overall in general, it was pretty dark. We would like to try and enhance that lighting at some point. The scoreboard and chaperones that are constantly needed, especially during the winter season. And we had no physical trainer this year, but we are finally getting in the right direction with that we will have one established for next year if all goes well. Some of the coaches' concerns were the late practices, but there's nothing we could really do about that because of the lack of facility space. The high school basketball hoops not adequate and need attention. I mean, that is a concern that I brought up. And then something along the lines of possibly getting the floors refinished over the Christmas break. And then also developing a wrestling room so we are not using the cafeteria spaces as our practice areas. And getting huddle in the high school for streaming. That is something that we had success with this year with the middle school. And even if because we were streaming live, and even if people were not watching, the huddles provided a lot of useful information to our coaches, which was very beneficial for them. And I'll just close it out. I think those are things that we can talk about at another time. As potential upgrades, those are things I just talked about. And I'll end it with some pictures here. The winter celebrations. This is the volleyball team after they won the Section 2 championship. This is the wrestling team after they won the Section 2 Class C championship. And this is Riker Cox, who is a 7th grader here that represented CA at the state tournament. And that is the presentation.
Well, I want to thank you for your staff and everything that everybody does just every day for physical education. I know we all think that that's extremely important for the kids, like Jake was saying, just get kids out and moving around. I also want to thank those coaches, everybody, because I know also from my son-in-law, Jake, that it's a lot of hours, and it's not just what we see here. There's ordering uniforms, and there's
If you do it, if you're doing it right.
a lot of hours. So appreciate all that everybody's done.
Well, thank you. Questions?
Kurt, you mentioned a trainer, and I know that's part of maybe a larger discussion later tonight, as part of a budget process. What do you feel would be the qualifications for the trainer that you need?
So the trainer would be a service that's provided from outside, so like cell physical therapy, top form physical therapy. There's another group out of Catskill. So I have reached out to all them and told them what kind of our needs are, and what we would like to do with our program here. And then they would provide either a yes or no. And if it was a yes, give me a contract and see what, where we lie.
I apologize. I got a little confused on a trainer because I know we're considering.
Oh, you're talking about
someone
the
in
fitness?
in the fitness room?
Yep.
We're talking about a position there. So what would be the minimum qualifications needed and what would be,
Ideally, we would like a physical education teacher. That way we can utilize this person in and outside of the weight room. You can utilize us in and outside of that weight room for different classes. That way we can move ourselves around and kind of be more involved with the school body and not just a certain building. If it is just a strength and conditioning coach, they would have to have their certifications within that strength and physical education or strength and conditioning.
The YMCA has a lot of trainers. Some have what they call master's training certificates. Would that be something that would qualify?
Yeah, depending on, I would have to see what that is, but I would think so. If they're there and being able to provide teaching and education towards those weights, then I would see why not.
I know we're going to be discussing, funding maybe some other positions. I just wanted to know that if we had to go with someone less than a qualified physical education teacher, what?
Yeah, and the other thing to also consider is like, obviously, we'd like to have a full-time phys ed teacher, right? I think that would be ideal. But you could do something that is along the lines of a part-time, and then that other person takes on the responsibilities of the fitness coordinator as the second part of the job. That's also a possibility too. But then once you start getting into that, you start limiting how many people want to apply. Like this past year, when we tried to make this thing work, we didn't have enough applicants just for the price point that we were offering as a stipend,
The last question I have is, you mentioned a wrestling room. Do you foresee that being in the next building project?
I do. At least into consideration, because the ideal thing is this. I do want to advance on that weight room. And if we need to start looking into expanding on the building, such as even the elementary physical education, the gymnasium, and blowing out that wall and making it bigger, whether it is utilizing the cafeteria. I think there was discussions about maybe possibly having a different size cafeteria for the middle school, utilizing that existing cafeteria as a weight room, and then changing what the weight room is now into a wrestling room that could be also used for a variety of activities for physical education as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Do you see an opportunity for the weight room to be used by the community?
That is what I ideally would love to see. So let's just envision my goal is having that cafeteria right now, maybe possibly being a weight room. You have in and out access that members from the community don't have to be walking through the school building to access it. They can walk up the side, we can have it well lit, and they can walk right in that side building with a check-in, and then they can utilize the weight room. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Music and secondary arts.
All right, good evening. I'm Deb Anderson. I'm Michelle Everett, and we are co-department leaders of secondary and elementary art and music departments. We have some of our members here. Elisa Fuchsia is her first year teaching art. She's been with CA for many years, so thank you. Lori Morris is here, our middle school art teacher. Andy Olstad is my colleague up at the high school. He couldn't make it tonight, but he's here with us in spirit, of course. And then Michelle, would you like to introduce our music folks?
Yeah, we've got Ben Richards, who does 7th and 8th grade band. We've got Carrie Greenway, who does CE and EJA elementary music. And we have Lucille Muzillo, who also does 5-6 band and general music. And I believe we are, there he is. We have Earl Kent, who does our 5-6 chorus and general music, as well as piano up at the high school.
All right, so I'm going to begin with slides for the art department this evening. And take a look at this first one. We were asked to share some art department highlights to you this evening. So I wanted to mention that we have had within our different areas between elementary, middle school, and high school, almost something happening every single month as far as either staff development or student exhibitions or otherwise. Some of those things you'll see listed in the sidebar here. We have an opportunity every year to go to a conference through the New York State Art Teachers Association. And this year I was able to attend. The district very nicely extended that opportunity for me to go out to Binghamton and work with some colleagues, take some workshops, go to some keynote speaker sessions, and just be with other art teachers and bring back some knowledge that we can share with the staff here. So that was called the Outside the Lines exhibition. Outside the Lines conference. Also every year, Mr. Squire asks us if we can produce some work for the Cafe Gala. Usually I have students that create those pieces. This year I took a crack at it and brought out about 4 pieces for our inductees, which was a nice opportunity. And this year we also were asked to collaborate with Mr. Dial's group, who also creates the yearbook. I don't know if Mr. Dial here tonight, maybe it's not maybe so. So we collaborated together to look at how we could reimagine the river haunts. So this was a sketch that I worked on in collaboration with students, and we talked about how could this look. They had a design, and we worked together on a couple of different things for that. Next, you'll see here a couple of different things that we have going on. Firstly, coming up April 13th, we have a new exhibit that we got involved in this year through Niskayuna High School. It's called the Capital Region Media Arts Festival. There's quite a few school districts that were involved, about 17 of us. So we just got some news this week that one of our students has won a prize, Annabella Spara. She's won the 3rd place in photography, the area of abstraction, and that's Mr. Olstad's student. So congratulations to Mr. Olstad's student. That's a very nice honor. We will be live streaming this event in our high school library. So that's going to be right before the break, which is a nice thing for students. They'll get to come out to our library, see some work from their peers and all of the other students in the different districts that participated, and we have popcorn for them. So it's going to be a nice live stream for them and a great opportunity for them to see what their peers are doing, not only at CA, but also in other districts. Something else that we do absolutely every year is we partner with the Athens Cultural Center. The Athens Cultural Center is a wonderful place. They have tons of opportunities for kids. In particular, they have free classes for students, young students over the summer. So if you have any students that you'd like to help learn a little bit more about art in their time off from school over the summer. They can go out there and check it out. So this was another wonderful opportunity for our kids to showcase their work to the community. And I want to specifically recognize Elisa because on that evening, she not only, presented her work, her students' work, but then she came and presented to the board, and that's a wonderful thing to do. So thank you. Well, we held down the fort at the Cultural Center. So this is our student, Rach Marino. She's 17 years old. She's a senior this year. She just got accepted to FIT, and she's showing one of her pieces that she actually developed for the Olympics of the Visual Arts during the pandemic. That particular exhibit was shut down due to COVID-19, so we had her present this piece this year at the Cultural Center. And in particular, one of the people that works there, Debbie Mitchner, she's the curator. She took a special interest in Rach, and so Rach was asked to actually submit further work for a show coming up called Pins and Needles. And it's a very exciting opportunity for Rach because not only is she going to be able to show what she's done throughout her years at CA to the people at FIT, but she has this opportunity to exhibit again. And there will be a famous artist involved named Kiki Smith, who's shown at the Metropolitan Museum Park. So we're very proud of Rach. So it's a great opportunity for her. And we have another exhibit coming up called Spectrum. It's a show that's going to highlight LGBTQ+ artists and allies. Athens Cultural Center is partnering with 2 curators from Athens Pride. They've asked us to exhibit student work. So we do have our Inclusivity Club creating some work to present at the show. They've asked if we could have a youth wall, so we're trying to encourage more students. This opportunity is also open to LGBTQ+ allies, so not just LGBTQ identifying students. So those are some of our opportunities that are going on. We also had a wonderful production of Into the Woods this year that involved quite a few different departments. So I'd like to recognize not only those of us in the arts department that helped out with this, but also Josh Craig, who directed, who's right here in the back. Thank you, Josh. And Carrie Greenaway, who conducted and did quite a bit with our students, help them with acting. And Jen Seacamp, our advisor, along with Jen, along with Wes Lackey, who gave up his time to volunteer and do all of the sound and lights and things that go along with that, and any other staff or community members that helped us administration as well. Big job. So you can see here we have some of our backstage students working on props. So this is Shelby Macy. She's a senior this year. We have Izzy Cotillo back here and sophomore Kylie Brunel working on what was our boom stock. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about CA Art Club. CA Art Club has been going on for about 3 to 4 years. This is a high school initiative. We have lots of kids involved, not even just kids that have art classes. Sometimes we have kids who can't fit an art class in, so they come to Art Club. We are currently working on a mural, River Park Hawks mural, that we can put up in one of our stairwells. We're working with student council on this, so it's a collaboration of 2 clubs. You can see here in some of these pictures, we have students working on a holiday fundraiser. They did a make your own ornament fundraiser this past year. And sometimes they just like to come and socialize and work together on personal passion projects. We were also asked to talk about what's new in our arts department. We have a great new class that Mr. Olstad is running. It's an instrument design class. These are 2 of his students, Will Prober and Gabe Hoagland, and they are showing creation of the body of a guitar and creation of a headstock and the strings. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. I'm not a music person, as you can see. Maybe Michelle, you can help me. But we have some great instrument making going on. Mr. Olstad is partnering with Mr. Pietro to use the space to work with all the power tools. So that's been a nice collaboration between departments. We also have Annabella's piece here from the Media Arts Festival. And Sif Craver is one of our students who also decided to enter some work. Sif entered a piece that is a visual storytelling. And this work will also be shown at the live stream on August 13th. Mr. Yanofsky also collaborated with Mr. Olstad and I to include some of his media arts students. So that was nice that we could all work together on exhibiting student work. Finally, we were asked to share a few things about the hopes for the future of our department. One of the things that we hope for, we know it might not be possible, but if you don't ask, you can't get. So we'd like to maybe see some stipends for all of our teachers that participate in the college and the high school program. We have quite a few of us who are adjunct professors for Columbia Green. So it is an extra duty that we do that rolls into our classes. So we would like to see if maybe Columbia Green could help us out there. We'd like to improve some elective choice for students at the middle school level in terms of our conflicts that we often see between scheduling art and music. A lot of the time we are sort of competing for who's gonna be in art, who's gonna take band, and we don't want to have to see kids make those decisions. We'd like for them, if at all possible, to be able to have both, you know. Also, we'd like to see a dedicated art class for the 8th graders. Right now, 8th graders can take an accelerated program, but there is no dedicated 8th grade art class. And so sometimes if they're not getting that 8th grade class, the next time they get a class is 9th or 10th or 11th or 12th grade. It's been the case where sometimes I won't see a kid until like 12th grade. The last time they had art was 7th grade. So for me, there's a big learning loss where they have to fill in the gaps there. So that's something that we'd like to see happen. Also, I know Ms. Morris would like to see the Festival of the Arts come back. That's something that hasn't been around lately. We do have the Student Showcase of Success that has sort of, in a way, taken the place of the Student Festival of the Arts. And her and I are working together to try to find some more opportunities to showcase student art, especially her second semester students. They don't always get like a big art show because the Athens County Cultural Center show happens before she sees those second semester students. And also major equipment purchases. We were asked to highlight some major equipment purchases. Mr. Olstad is going to need an upgrade to some of his digital SLR cameras. So preferably he's asking for a Canon type of camera. And we both like to order printers for our classrooms. So just a couple of things to showcase what we would hopefully like to order. And before I give it over to Michelle, I'd like to certainly open it up for questions or comments.
I think it's a great presentation, and our art department has come a long way since I've been on the board. And just to see the amazing opportunities that you offer kids is fantastic. And I appreciate Rachel's fashion design work. That was nice to see. And do we offer a course in fashion design, specifically in fashion design, or is that incorporated into some other form of art class?
We have it through DL actually. So there is a teacher at another school district that streams into our school, but we actually do not have anybody that is expert in fashion design, though we've been asked about that. This summer I'll be taking a course on fiber arts, so I'd like to bring that component into our program a little bit further. So while we don't have one of our own here that teaches fashion design, it could certainly be developed into part of the curriculum. But luckily we do have that DL portion. Thank you. Other questions
I
or
think we
comments?
appreciate you included in Mr. Wilkerson too about the things that you would like to see, because I think it's important for us to know those details. So that's good.
Thank you.
I have one other question. Do you allow middle school students to join the high school students in the art club, or is that specific just to the high school?
Actually, it's supposed to be just specific to the high school. However, there are a few that like to come up, and I don't necessarily say no to them because sometimes they need to come up
with a sibling. I think it would be wonderful if we could expand it outward to our middle school, because it gives them an eye into, okay, what could I do when I get up to the high school? You know, oh, you're the teacher for this, or you're the teacher for that. These are the projects you take. So I'm totally not opposed to involving them.
I agree with you on all that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also just like to say that there are so many careers that are related to the art field that we just need to let our students know about. Because when my daughter went to school, we had no idea of all the endless possibilities for her, and it's amazing. And she did get she had a very good support system here. So I appreciate that. But also your point about kids having to choose between music and band, that's hard. And they can excel in both. And so we need to figure out a way to help that not be a choice or not have to be a choice. Good point. Thank you.
To Nicole's point, have those discussions been taking place?
Actually, yeah, between our departments. So what we're trying to do, Michelle and I and our colleagues, is come up with a set of solutions that we can then present to our administration to kind of, you know, get the ball rolling a little bit, because we know that they have their own challenges with scheduling. We know scheduling is extremely difficult. And we don't want to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution. And so we've been talking about it for months and trying to put our heads together and talk to colleagues in other school districts and say, well, what do you do? How do you make it work? So
Is the need for more staff, or you don't think that's?
I don't know. I guess I would leave that to our administration to decide based on what it is we could do within our current structure. I'm not sure if that would be some decision for myself to make. I also don't know.
But you would be contributing to that conversation.
I suppose so, yeah. I would really probably defer to Lori, because she's the one at the middle school who is teaching all of those classes, and she really knows the schedule better than I do, because I'm up at the high school.
Okay.
We see this happening more in the middle school than we do up at the high school. I mean, it does happen up at the high school, but by then students have a track that they know that they're kind of going toward. They know that they want to maybe focus on this particular aspect of art, or graphic design, or literature, fashion. Or maybe they're going to go into a music instrument study course or sound design or something like that. Whereas in the middle school, they're still kind of figuring it out. So yeah, I think I would refer to Lori on that part of things. If she needed extra help, you know.
It's very nice job. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for all that information. I would
Yeah.
love other districts, and we can this can that next week, so it's nice.
I personally think it's crucial, because
Yeah.
we need to learn from one another.
Right.
And we can't just work in this vacuum, you know, if somebody is doing something great over there, then we want to celebrate them, and vice versa.
And I agree with you, Martha. I think the art is really, our program is really doing a terrific job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll leave it to you, Michelle. Pass the torch.
All right, good evening. I'm here to talk about the highlights of our musical program, what's going really well, and also possibly what we need as a music department. So our concerts, I am so happy to say, are live and in person, and every time we have a concert, it keeps getting better and better with less COVID restrictions needed. Last year, we only had one concert, and it was a high school concert, and it was outside, and it was a lot of work. And this year we started off, and I'll show you a picture in a moment, with a lot of restrictions. We were spaced out, we were all masked, band students were 6 feet apart. So we were exploding off of the stage, and we had a lot of logistical things to figure out to get these concerts to happen and have audience numbers and live streaming. So a lot of moving parts. We just had a concert with the high school last week on March 30th, and it went extremely well. We were much more normal, masks were optional, we were not limited in the audience, and I know the students, myself, and audience members just kind of felt a sense of relief and just happiness about seeing these students getting to perform in a much more normal fashion than we've been dealing with for a while. So we have upcoming concerts in all grade levels. Our high school 7th and 8th and 5th and 6th have concerts coming up in June or May. And elementary just had one as well. They're going to also have one on May 26th. So we still have a couple more that you could come and see, and no restrictions. So we can invite anybody now, which is great. Back in November, right before Thanksgiving break, senior Brandon Morehouse was selected to be an area all-state. And that was down in Newburgh Free Academy. And it was kind of the first taste of getting back to music making since COVID shut us down. And he did a great job. It is seniors, juniors, and sophomores who are selected from a very large pool of 5 counties, very large counties like Orange County, where it's a very small county of Greene County. And he was selected and able to sing in the chorus, and I was able to go there with him, and it was a phenomenal experience for both he and I. And then coming up in May, we have 13 students who are performing at a solo festival, some doing solos and some doing duets. So we'll have more great information to come from them in about a month or so. So here's what it looks like in December. These are our 5th and 6th graders at the top there, spaced out with our math. This is Carrie and her, I believe, 3rd and 4th graders doing a performance. So getting back to it, but definitely still difficult for us teachers, difficult for us students. And then this was March 30th, last week, when we got to have our high school concert. This is my select group. You can see they're very excited and happy to be making music. This is our high school band, directed by Lucille Mazzillo and Ben Richards. So we have a new band teacher, Miss Minetta. However, she went out early on maternity leave about a month ago, and we were kind of stuck. And we were trying to interview people, and my principals know it was a very difficult process trying to find somebody. And so my colleagues, Lucille and Ben, they stepped up and they said, hey, these kids are gonna have a concert. And they did. So they ran the rehearsal. We weren't able to have lessons because they have their own full-time jobs, but we were able to run rehearsals and get the kids to that concert so they could perform and they didn't have to miss out on a performance while their teacher was out. So I thank them a lot. That was a lot of extra work to step up and do, and I know I appreciate it, the music department, and I know the students did as well. So thank you to them. And there's my high school chorus group, just looking a little bit more normal and a lot happier to be making music again live and in person. It's really been quite a joy to kind of get back to it. We also had other events back in the beginning of March. Earl Kent had his annual middle school idol competition, and we had a 6th grade winner, Leo Walker. And at the bottom is Carrie's group at the EJA Victorian Stroll back in December. Our kids are out and about doing things in the community, and hopefully we can get to more things in the community now as things seem to be getting better. Also have our plug for Drama Club and Into the Woods, the huge undertaking, and Carrie Greenaway was the musical director. So she was teaching the kids all of the music and responsible for everything musical related in that. And that is a big, humongous job. So I thank her, but I also thank Deb and Josh and Jen for helping put on this performance for a lot of our high school students.
That's okay.
A couple of things that's going really well. We are really excited that right now we had some movement last year when Steve Kowalski retired. We now have 1 teacher for 5-6 instrumental and 1 teacher for 7-8 instrumental. That was the way in about 2009 to 2012. We had 2 band teachers down in the middle school, And then through budget cuts, we lost one of them. So now we do have 2 band teachers, which is really great for the band program. Students are able to meet once a week for a group band lesson, which was not possible when we only had one covering 5 through 8 band. We have a new band director, as I said, Julie Minetta, and she is out on maternity leave. And we hopefully, as long as it's approved by the board tonight, we will finally get a maternity leave director to take over on Monday so that they will continue with and have a concert, especially for those seniors who have had a very weird couple of years due to COVID and no concerts. And then again, thank you to Lucille and Ben for taking over high school band while Julie was out. There is one thing that I'm going to talk about before I go to the needs improvement, just so you know, if you're not aware, COVID hit everybody extremely hard, but definitely the music program. We were singing and playing 12 feet apart at the beginning of last year. My kids with masks on, obviously instruments not. And we were split up into groups for the first time. So last year I had 4 sections of high school chorus. And I know it was the same way with band. Middle school did not have performance classes. They were after school or they were lessons only. So our program has a lot of rebuilding to do because of COVID, and it's certainly been tough. It's been really nice to see that now we're getting back to some normal concerts and our groups are starting to meet back together because they were too large to do that before. So that is really great, but we've definitely had a lot of challenges over the course of the past 2 years. Needs improvement. Last year there was a lot of moving, and what happened to one of our in our elementary schools was music was cut from 2 classes a week to 1, leaving only 1 elementary teacher. So as great as it is, as we got another band teacher, we lost an elementary music teacher down to 1 class a week. Could you click on that document for me? So that leads to a drastic loss of time with students and many more events for this particular music teacher to do. We have a lot of details on the bottom, but I'll just have you look at these 2 charts right here. So the blue is what happened in 2010, and the red is what is happening now, 2021, 2022. So a lot more classes, a lot more other things happening, great events that Carrie is putting on throughout both of the schools, compared to the prep time for her students, just seeing them in class to prepare them. So a lot more time in 2010 versus 2021. So we're hoping something can change with that. Thank you. And then the other big thing, and this was really because of COVID, our groups not being scheduled together. So everybody's seeing sections of small groups, but not like all sopranos in a group and all altos in a group, or tenors and basses just kind of thrown into different classes, different instrumentations and things like that. So we really need at the 5th through the 12th grade level to be able to get back to having a band class that meets at one time, and a chorus class, and the 7th and 8th and 5th and 6th graders and chorus and band doing the same thing. Because we need the kids to be performing all together. A lot of times we don't know what's really going to happen until we have a combined rehearsal, 2 weeks out from a concert. So that is nerve-wracking for us, nerve-wracking for the students. We've kind of gotten used to it, but we would definitely like to see that go back. It's just going to benefit the students and the program as a whole, band and chorus. Our hopes for the future, again, leading on what I just said, all chorus and band ensembles being able to rehearse together at the same time, largely due to COVID restrictions. We can't have 80 students in a chorus room last year or at the beginning of this year. And now it seems like we are moving in that direction. So if we could rehearse all together, that would just be absolutely amazing for us in our program. Rebuilding and growing the music program that was hurt by the pandemic, as I talked about before, and middle school not really having chorus and band for an entire year, just lessons. And then the last thing, all students having access to quality instruments regardless of financial situation. We do have some school instruments, but a lot of times, parents have to rent them or they have to buy them. And we want to see all students, if they want to play a clarinet, they can play the clarinet. It shouldn't be based on if they can afford it or not. So that's a big hope for us. Up at the high school, we would like new equipment for the piano lab, which is in the back of my chorus room. So you've probably never even seen it before, but this is 2 pictures of what it looks like. It's a great space and it is used for a lot of great music making. However, many of those keyboards, actually all of them besides the teacher one, are about 13+ years old. They are when I first started and got tiny little keyboards. And, we're looking for something much more sustainable and something that will really get the kids interested in taking piano classes. So back in January, I went up to Colony and I spoke to the owner of Hilton Piano. And he talked to me about piano labs that he's installed in various different schools. So we talked a lot. We got some quotes and I sent them off to the district. And these are a couple of examples of what they could potentially look like. And they have many opportunities, Bluetooth capabilities, abilities to work with our iPads and different programs, and really get the kids involved in playing the piano. And we could get more kids in there. Some of the pianos have the ability to play the same octaves, but 2 students could be on a piano. So that could be something that would save money. Instead of buying 16 pianos, you could need 8. So we're hoping for something. This is definitely like our absolute goal. If this is not something that is feasible, we definitely still need regular keyboards because the ones that we have are falling apart. They're not sustainable for a piano class or for my music theory classes who also use it. Oh, and just one more thing, Mr. Hilton from Hilton Piano, he said he would be willing to talk to anybody who wanted to hear about the piano lab. He was a great guy. He was good at selling things. If anybody wants his contact information. And then on the band side of things, from Miss Minetta, she is looking to start some sort of, maybe not necessarily our marching band, but a band who could actually play at different events that don't require stands and things like that. So we have in the high school, like a homecoming parade, and I think the town has a Memorial Day parade, but she does not have the equipment to do so. So she did put also in January for marching snares and basses if the band was to march. So if we want to get band out in the community, it's a lot of equipment. So anything to kind of help out with that would help us get out into the community more. And then again, more school-owned instruments, or maybe all school-owned instruments, so that students could join band regardless of their financial situation. I believe that's it. Anybody have any questions for me?
Michelle, you got a lot of content there, and so thanks for providing that. The piano lab, is that open for middle school instruction as well?
Not right now. There's no scheduled classes in there, but I don't see why there couldn't be classes.
Okay. And I just, the outdoor concert last year was phenomenal. It was a new twist to what we're usually used to seeing. I can tell you the crowd absolutely loved it with the blankets, the chairs, made it more comfortable outside. It was a great setting. So I hope he gives some consideration to keeping that going.
I think she already did. Already considered.
It was nice, except we had to reschedule like floor times and pay outside people to do the sound.
I know it was a lot of work, but that's glad. I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Kent. Thank you over the years for producing the Tween Idol contest. This is a great opportunity for students, and thanks again for that. And I think that, because since there was so much content in there, for the music department, when it comes to instruction and staffing, what do you need most in staffing? You need a staff member. If there was a new staff member coming on board in your department, what kind of work would they perform, or what do you need?
I would definitely advocate for another staff member. We've been talking about it for years, probably since the last 2012, when the last staff member was let go. We could use somebody else at the elementary school. We could reconfigure what we do at the middle school. We could add more electives at the high school. I would absolutely advocate for another staff member in our music department.
You mentioned that the middle schoolers meet once a week for a group lesson. Is that like a whole band getting together?
No, that would be like the 7th grade clarinets meet once a week and the 5th grade trumpets meet once a week. So they have their individual small group lessons with their respective teachers.
Do you feel that's sufficient, or would twice, if you could do twice a week, is there room to do that, or you don't have the structure and personnel?
Probably, definitely not for the teachers we have now, and I don't, scheduling wise.
Really, once a week is kind of the standard for the lesson.
Okay, all right.
That's what the high school does, the high school band and the high school chorus, we do about once a week. They're also pull-out lessons, so if we pulled out twice a week, I don't know if my other staff members.
Understood. Thank you so
And
much.
Michelle, is it now once a week? I know, like last year, whenever it was almost like every 10 days, almost like every 2 weeks you had a lesson.
It
So has
is
it come back?
solely because Lucille has moved up to 5-6, so Ben is now doing 5 through 8, and one teacher trying to do an entire 5-8 program. So in that aspect, it's great for the band. So Lucille does 5-6, Ben does 7-8. They get to see their teachers much more frequently versus one teacher. So that is good.
You strike a nerve with me when you talk about kids not being able to do something because of their financial situation. So we've talked about this as long as I've been here, that's not our goal. It's the opposite. So is there a way to quantify that? Like in general, like you'd have to know what that would cost and how many kids would participate. Not that you have to get into people's private business, but
Yeah.
a guess at how many kids might participate. Then you have to have like an inventory.
Yes, I'm sure we could work on that in our instrumental department. I don't know.
I mean, whether how many.
How much it would cost.
Oh, we can find out, but I mean, it really doesn't matter. I mean, we can just tell you factually, or I've had it myself, that I've probably had about 3 kids this year or more that wanted to play, but we didn't have the instruments for them to be able to play. And no offense, I'm not gonna have, and I know Mr. Richardson either, 12 percussionists, because that's like all we have for the. But I mean, we can, you know, sorry, if what's hard though is you're not gonna meet the needs of everybody. I mean, it's a lot amount of money to ideally have enough insurance for middle school and high school.
Well, it's almost like you think out of the box, like is there a way to have scholarships? There's a way to have help for, if it's just how do you get that? I'm not asking you to do that, but just I'm also thinking we have our daughters, Mr. Caldwell's wife's clarinet in our, that we bought
We have
like years
talked
ago.
about having an instrument drive.
Right.
And I think we've just kind of been busy,
No,
so that we
definitely.
haven't been able to come through
Yeah,
tuition. But that is one of our wishes, is to have an instrument recruitment.
I
Kind
believe
of
that the
high.
cafe, right? We had the conversation at the cafe that helps sponsor that. I know I think I talked to Lucille about that. Like, let's say Mr. Donahue turns in a clarinet and then the cafe would pay for it to be refurbished and made new again for the next person, new to the next kid.
It's in really good shape. She barely played. Just kidding. But this almost makes me, I don't know how to, just off the top of my head, but there's all these little things that it's almost like I wish we could have. I mean, we have this presentation, but I wish we could have a solution focused meeting on some of these things with different departments. And I don't know if that's our job or whatever, but I think, you just think of so many things that might help, that would help families, so that every kid has an opportunity to do whatever it is. We've talked about it with field trips, with, anything. We don't want anybody, and whatever that takes, whatever we need to do together. Because this is a community, I think, would work too. I mean, just look at the cafe, things that have been done with the cafe. But I think this is a community that would step up. And when we're aware of these kind of things. So thank you. So thinking what Kurt did, what you're doing, about, letting us know, because we may not be able to pull it out of Ryan's wallet, but we may be able to sit around and think about what might work community-wide. So thank you.
I'm sorry, just one more. So quite a few slides back, there was a graph. I wasn't able to read that at all. Can you don't have to go back to it, but can you tell me what, or send it, yeah.
Yeah.
It was attached to our stuff, but we have to request access to it, so a lot of times like that makes it tricky for us to look at those things, so like, I can't read that.
Yeah, it is very, can you scroll down a little bit more, they might be able to see. So we did the graph just for visual effect, but Carrie did put together, and Carrie, if you have anything to add, Carrie did put this together, what the one teacher used to do back in 2010. And then down here in 2021, if you scroll, like 17 classes versus 28 classes for one teacher. A lot more different celebrations, like 6 grandparents' day celebrations, and 8 grade level plays, and 4 moving up ceremonies, versus the time she actually gets to see her students. So 70 minutes for performance time, 35 minutes for chorus rehearsal, you just scroll up. Versus in 2010, it was 250 minutes and 55 minutes for a chorus rehearsal. So everything kind of got shortened for her. I don't know, Carrie, if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, that's basically it. I think just that, that the expectations for the number of performances have gone up, obviously, when you double the schools. But then you have the amount of instruction time with the students, because you go from twice a week to once per week. And there used to be, and granted, I went back to 2010, because at that time there was quite a bit more space in the schedule for rehearsal times and for creation of shows, because all of those things take time to be creative and put together something for the students to do. And that time has essentially gone out of my schedule, because it has to be so tight now in order to meet the demands of that number of classes and that number of students. So it's just to illustrate the vast amount of performances that I know we would like to do, but are really not realistic to do anymore because of the lack of student time and the lack of teacher time. So I think it's just, if the conversation isn't how do we restore a music position, then the conversation needs to be what performances really matter. Where do we really want to put that time for the students, for the teacher? Where's the biggest bang for the buck? And those are the things that we keep, because realistically, we just honestly can't add it all anymore.
So you'll make sure we can get access to that. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Budget update, Palmer?
Make it big, Ron. Make it big.
All right, so first thing I want to talk about the budget. The last time we had sat down and talked, we had a 4.32% tax cap. We had a formulated budget that had a $1.2 million gap above that tax cap at the maximum amount.
Since then, the tax cap, we've been able to get it down to 4.21%. Because we looked at what we were doing as far as bonds go coming this June and decided to put some of our fund balance into those bonds to lower our overall tax cap, to bring that down. And then by the end of this conversation, hopefully we're all smiles. So one of the things that it's important to remember is the uphill battle we face every year when we're doing this, right? So the three major pieces of any budget are, how do we take that foundation aid? How do we take that tax levy added to it? And how do we balance that with our expenditure budget? What we're seeing is that the foundation aid is decreased or is not increasing as quickly as the expenditure budget is increasing. So we have to make up for that gap with the tax levy. So what I did was I went back to 21-22 this school year, and I took our foundation aid numbers, took 1% on that, 1% on the tax levy, 1% on the expenditure budget. With that alone at 1%, we're facing a $91,000 and change gap. Okay, so these are the tricks that go into how do we take that and either lower expenditures or raise the tax levy, because the foundation aid is essentially an independent variable here that we can't control. So some of the things that we are looking to do this year with that in mind are adding these certain positions, right? So we've got paraprofessionals, that's 5 special ed teachers, aides, and assistants. We've got a counselor for the flex program, it's a full-time counselor. And we're looking to formalize the seasonal groundskeeper position so that they would be here starting in April through October, when it gets nice out, through when about the fall season, sport season ends, or when grass doesn't need to be mowed anymore, we don't need to be outside as much. So we are looking to formalize that position. Federal aid positions that we're looking to add, we've talked about, I'm just going to skip to the bottom really quick, just because we've already kind of alluded to it a couple times tonight, is the fitness room coordinator. And a teacher for the flex program would be a full-time 7-12 content area teacher. Okay, some of the things that go into every budget before we get to the big 5 are health insurance premiums. So the last time I met with you guys, I told you on the 29th, we would have our health insurance numbers. We're in that small bucket. We don't really know what those numbers are going to be, but we did find out that Blue Shield health insurance is going up by 0%. That was great. The CVS Caremark prescription piece of things is going up 5.1%, and CDPHP health insurance is going up 9.9%. So just to give us kind of a context of what this looks like, when I say CDPHP health insurance, CDPHP is made up of a health insurance and a prescription plan. When I say Blue Shield health insurance, that is just the health insurance, and then to that we add the CVS Caremark prescription plan. So the reason I'm pointing that out is if you have Blue Shield insurance through the school, that doesn't mean your premiums are not going up. It just means the health insurance piece of your premium is not going up. So here's our big 5, kind of small, sent it to you guys. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to go to this with you. Big 5 broken down, we've got our special ed, our salaries, our health and dental insurance, our retirement fees, our transportation, and then we ran a 5-year average just so we can see what kind of trends exist. The one that I wanted to point out to you guys is we are seeing with transportation, right now DCMO BOCES, who we contract for our diesel fuel, they are at present not going out to bid for diesel fuel because of the price of diesel fuel. So we're still waiting on that. Factored into the current budget, I think we've conservatively put the average fuel used plus some, just don't want to run out of gas or fuel, sorry. And I'm pretty confident with the number that we have in there. I'm hoping that it's conservative to the point where DCMO, when they do go out to bid, we will be fine with our budget. The retirement, we see an 8.9% increase. So that was the other big one. $1 million question. Where are we at right now, Ryan? Where are we at, right? So right now, we do have an expenditure and a revenue budget balanced at a 2.09% increase from last year to this year. This year to next year. And where does our tax levy exist? So the question then, why is our tax levy not at 2.09? That goes back to the first slide I went over with you guys. The expenditures are increasing, but not at the same rate as our foundation aid, not at the same rate as our tax levy. So we have to make up for it somewhere. And fortunately, that does fall onto the tax levy. So before I told you guys that the tax levy max right now is 4.21. We are proposing a 2.92% tax levy increase at a budgeted amount of $34,710,768.00. So I like round numbers. So that's what we're at with the budget.
Frank, can you talk about the federal aid money that would be utilizing to fund the instructor for what's requested by the physical education department?
In what way? What part of it?
Well, just confirm that for me first.
Yes,
We're
yes,
using
that would be paid out
federal
of federal dollars for the
And that's
incoming
a
school
pool of
year.
money sitting somewhere,
It's grant money that we'll be getting it.
and you had to apply for that.
Yes.
Could you use the same process for,
No, we're paying it out of the ARC fund, so we apply for it. Just receive
Yeah,
that.
but we,
Okay.
we have it. It just will. It'll
so we have
expire in
it
2
sitting
years.
in an account somewhere?
They give it to you when you expend it. So you do a little proposal in FS10 and you say, this is what I'm gonna spend it on. They say yes or no.
Could we utilize some of that money to fund another staff member in the music department?
Possibly. The reason I hesitate on that one is just that we get a lot of stuff sent back. Very specifically, the art money is for learning loss. The flex position, you can kind of argue learning loss. I haven't put the PE position in there to see if it was 100% get brought back, but we could probably talk SEL. So we could probably use an SEL argument for music as well. So I don't want to say 100% yes, but it could be possible.
So how does the fitness room coordinator fit under that? 'Cause that's
Other than,
not-
I haven't put that in there, but we're going to try and use an SEL life, because there's a little bit of discretionary money in there, and then but you still have to make an argument. So all this money is supposed to be helping kids that were impacted by COVID.
So why wouldn't the music teacher be that?
Well, I'm saying it could, but they bounced a bunch, you put it like a general idea of what you might want to spend money on, just to hold the money, and then you put amendments in as you go to spend the money. So they may have no problem with it, or they may push back. They may push back on the PE as well, but we'll do our best.
And who's they?
The state,
It goes, so federal to state to us.
correct. So we apply for the money to the state. So when you do the application, there's certain things, they were very tough this year. Usually with our grants, they give us a lot of leeway. But because this is federal money, I think they have to then respond back to the federal government why they spent what they did. But I'm not saying we couldn't. I just want to be honest that they could push it back. I don't know.
So things have changed since I think we originally talked about the federal money. Can we get, the board get a whole listing of things that we have already categorized into that money, right? Because I think things have changed. I don't know anymore what we have decided to do. Things have changed, like I said.
Well, I thought one of the big, is this the one that's 3 years? So I know one of the big things I thought we talked about too was not adding like permanent positions that we would look at sustaining for after 3 years, because then it has to be eaten by the budget. At some point, I would think that these two positions would kind of fall into what we didn't want to do.
Agree.
It is true.
That we're reluctant to put positions in there that we don't think we can somehow sustain in a couple of years in a general plan.
I know that's been my concern with the fitness room person from the beginning is the cost, and if it's something that the fitness teachers really like, and then all of a sudden we're like, well, we can't sustain it, then you lose it, and all the work that you've done to create it and get it going was kind of wasted for longevity purposes. But same with the flex program, if we're trying to get this program up and going for a group of students to really benefit from in 3 years, where does that leave us?
But Jamie, were you saying that, what I thought I heard you say, because I was sort of feeling it myself, is that we've been told that, okay, this is a proposal for where the money's gonna go and what we're gonna use it for, and then it seems like it's a different set of circumstances at a different a different month, a different meeting. So
Yes.
can we just have, I guess for me, some clarity as to when we decided how we were gonna spend the money and what we are absolutely doing with it? Instead of it just being every month something, oh, well, that's the fund, we're gonna do that with that money, okay? Because it seems like we've decided a couple of times, or talked about it a couple of times. That's all. Just to list it out, because we've had so many conversations about so many really big things. It's hard to keep it all straight.
I think Tara raises, a good point. But there's the other side of the issue. And I think the board has to come to, or has to have more discussion of what avenues they want to go down. Do they want to have more restraint on that spending now? Or do they want to pursue funding some programs? And we need to have that discussion and have that answer for this budget.
I think concur with Nicole and Amy. Obviously, years past, we didn't have this extra set of money sitting out there, which is a good problem to have, I suppose, in that regard. So like Michael Park said, we have the general fund budget, which is what you vote on. Those items you're not technically voting on. I'm not saying you should know what's going on. I'm not saying any of that. In the scheme of things, the flex teacher, the fitness recorder, any federal aid that's not part of the budget vote. It's not in the general fund. That's what the voters vote on. It's just how it works in that regard. But you have to know that we're gonna take it out of this pot of money or this pot of money for that. So what Bart says, what you'll have to decide on sooner or later is what are we going to pay for out of the general fund, and and then of course the corresponding piece. What's the tax levy going to be as a result of that? So tonight, everything we have today, so to speak, is still in the budget. We cut anything. We're proposing that we add 5 special ed paraprofessionals, and we have to, maybe an aide, maybe an assistant is not a huge difference there. Another counselor, and a seasonal groundskeeper, which is a part-time position in the scheme of things. So that's in the general fund budget. That's what's impacting the tax levy. Plus with everything else, we call the current staff or the current programs, et cetera, with that. And that's a 2 point.
Right now?
Yeah.
2.92.
2.92. Our tax levy cap is 4.21. And 1% of the levy, just to give you a ballpark, is 190-ish. Yeah, about 190,000 is 1% of the levy.
So why would the counselor for the flex program be in our budget and not in the special money?
Because we can afford it in the general fund budget.
It doesn't sound like we can. Right, I mean, if we have a big gap, how?
There is no in the general.
So if we go to this.
I thought we had a 900,000.
No. We have a flat budget of 3470, 710, 768 for revenue and expenditures at a 2.92% tax levy increase.
Okay.
I think the number you're thinking of is this.
Right.
That was just an example to explain why the tax levy is not going to increase at the same exact rate as the budget increases every year. That's all that was.
So we're at a 2.9 is what is
Yes.
gonna be,
Yep.
what was it last year?
Last year,
1.97, I think.
that was our cap. Last year, that was our cap.
And what are you proposing as our cap this year?
The cap that we calculated with the state formula is 4.21%. It was 4.34. Went down to 4.21. The budget is, I'm proposing it now, would be 2.92% increase.
If we had to hit a music position out of our general fund, where does it take us on that 2.92?
So if we were to add a teaching position right now, you're looking at an average teaching position plus fringe benefits brings you around the ballpark of $90,000. Okay, so that would increase our expenditure side by about 90,000, probably about 0.5% or so on the current levy. Maybe less, probably less, a little less than 0.5%.
So we're looking at 3-1.
Probably 3.4.
3.4-ish. I don't want to give you hard numbers because
No,
I'm
I
good at math for it. I'm not that good.
Don't tell us that.
Oh, I calculated first.
The other question I have, the music department talked about getting some new equipment,
Yep.
pianos. Is it, I think we talked about staggering maybe that,
Yep.
those purchases.
Yeah, so one of the ideas that came to mind was using some of the remaining equipment money that we have this year to buy some of it. And then starting next fiscal year, we could use the equipment money that we have to buy the other sum of it. Look into, because we did contact BOCES and ask if, can we buy it for BOCES so we can get aid on it? They told us no, we can't do that. So we would have to buy it out of equipment lines. The funny thing with equipment lines is they have special rules. Once you use them, you can't do a budget transfer into an equipment line. So as much as I would love to say, yeah, let's just transfer a bunch of money over and buy these things, we can't do that with an equipment line. So right now we've got about $18,000 left in the equipment line. And I'd like to use some of it now, not all of it, because what happens if something happens between now and the end of school? The end of the year, that is. So I would like to stagger it the same way Nicole and I have been talking for months now about staggering how we're buying iPads, how we're buying laptops and those kind of things, so that 5 years from now, if we need new pianos, we don't need, call it 10 more, we need 5 more because we bought 5 this year and 5 next year kind of thing. So I would like to develop some sort of a replacement.
So in that replacement plan, anticipating no disruption, to replace those pianos, are we looking over a 2, 3, 4 year period?
That'll be, I mean, that would really depend on a huge conversation with Michelle. I'll start with you. A conversation with Michelle to find out what her need is and what her anticipated, life is. I mean, if the one she has is 13 years, right? I'm gonna just go ahead and assume they haven't exactly been perfect for 13 years. They probably dwindled in use the same way a lawnmower would. And, where was that optimal here? And then try to build.
Okay.
Well, I know my concern when we did talk about that was making sure that they are similar in capacity and ability and will all connect to the same. Because if you buy 1 year and then 2 years later you buy more, they might be upgraded completely different, and then the
Certainly
first set
variable.
doesn't work.
Yep, certainly a variable.
Not to pick on Michelle, but what is the mechanism for Michelle to let you know that she needs 13 new keyboards?
She's already submitted the paperwork.
So what's the mechanism? What's that look like? How does that work?
Every year we do the equipment requests that go out, and then she submitted those back with quotes and everything for me. And then we've had a couple emails back and forth.
I don't mean just but anybody who wants to.
Anybody, yep. Coaches do it with, the coaches do it at the end of every season. The teachers do it, other staff.
And this America Cares money can be used for things as well as staff. So
Okay,
can we buy instruments?
In theory, yes.
So I just don't understand, I just need a little bit of clarification. Like, I get it that we don't get to decide on everything, but I thought that we have discussions and we kind of make suggestions as a board to what would benefit everybody in the school. So the money that we don't have a say on, that can just be changed no matter, depending on what is the feeling for the day. Do we get to see where, do we get to have some sort of say? Do we get to hear from the staff, and do we get to hear from the community, and do we get to hear from what represents everybody in that grant money? You know what I mean? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. I appreciate that all the work that you've done to get the gap, and I don't think that this is, when we say we have all this money and we're gonna then spend it here, spend it there, it just feels like it changes a lot. So it feels like it's a little bit not, I don't know, forthcoming maybe. I don't know. I just don't know how. I guess I would like to see a list of what we talked about over the course of the last couple meetings when it's come to budget and what we said we were gonna use that money for. That's all. It doesn't have to be a vote, I just wanted to see.
So, should the budget committee meet before our next plan meeting with the entire board? Would that help in this situation?
That would be a great help for, I think.
I also have a question. So the equipment budget that you're talking about, is it by department? So like all the stuff that we keep buying for the tech department, like we just keep buying and buying and buying. We could have added some.
Tech is
I'm not talking
primarily.
about the iPads, I'm talking about like our dream fab room. So we keep buying for that, but now our music, things that are dear to my heart, which other people on the board too, they're going to the wayside.
They're not being like though.
But it sounds like it is.
But it's not because that that requisition for supplies came into us with this year's
Okay.
equipment thing. And they're being dealt with this year's equipment decisions,
Okay.
right? So we have I feel as though we have a plan in place that can get her that. I don't want to promise anything because, God forbid something happens where we don't have $18,000 sitting there to now go and spend money on the pianos that we want to be able to provide. So I have a plan in place. We have a plan in place. And we would love to execute that plan, but we don't want to prematurely execute said plan.
Okay, it just seems like certain departments get every little thing that they ask for, and others get nothing. And like, I know that the music department's been asking for years for another person. I know Bart for several years has asked for another person. I know this person's different than equipment, so I'm sorry to mix topics, but it's not equal. It's not, and I'm gonna use the word fair, and I know things aren't always fair, but not everybody's meant to go into the steam. People are creative. People want to go that way. So we need to start looking that way as well, not just at the STEAM. I know STEAM with the art, but STEM, how about STEM? But we just need to start looking elsewhere and not just pet projects for certain people. That's just how I feel. I'm sorry. Nobody else feels that way.
So we're gonna look for a breakdown of how grant monies are being
So
currently used.
we can, I just can't emphasize the point enough though, but from what Randy just said, the grant money is separate from the budget.
It
It's
is,
supplemental, I should say it's supplemental to the budget.
so I understand, it's not what we're voting on.
Correct.
I understand that, but it's critical for me to understand how monies are used so that we can meet the needs that I see are real needs that need to be filled. So I just need to understand how certain things are being paid for and where we might be able to pull that money from. I don't know if it's going to help me, but I need something to try to help me understand this. You're looking at each
Plus,
other.
there's a time frame here, right? Like the budget has to be approved,
Yes,
but this America Cares money is
supplemental,
ongoing.
supplemental to the budget.
And when you want something, you submit for it, and then if they approve it, they give you the money back. So that, we'd want to know, that's separate, that has a different time limit, or maybe not a time limit.
We could do what Ida's asking. Again, when the money showed up, or so to speak, the federal money, last spring, we did the surveys last summer. Right? Surveys of staff, community members, board, we had the big list with what we want to, within those confines, it had to need to be able to extend learning to after school, summer school. There's those limits that the state and whoever else put on there. And that's, and then from there, we took that list. I think we pretty much got most of the stuff people asked. I mean,
There was a lot of bounce back.
yeah,
So
the other issue is, and Gary's trying to be nice about it, is the state, we submit it, and now the state say, well, maybe not. And it's not just us, it's everybody across the state is having to go back, and things that you would think they would say yes to are not saying yes to. So I mean, you have to get creative, and it's, I'll just say it, it's a game. The school district are playing across the state right now. They're also, yeah, we're going to use the art money to pay for X, knowing full well they're gonna use their general fund to pay for it, just, and then just hold the federal money in the reserve somehow. That's what's going on across the state, because it's just, they just say it's easier just to tell them they want it here, and then not do it. So that's, again, I'm not saying it's right, that's, it's not really transparent, that's the things, but it's just, how it's being played.
So can the budget committee meet and get some of these answers that are being asked for? And then I would hope that the budget committee could come back with some recommendations to the board as it relates to budget items.
They're also, they're interrelated. You can't, we gotta look at them together. So like I was talking about the time frame. There's this budget that we have to approve, it's soon, but there's this other money. So if I had two pots of money, and one I had more, well, maybe not freedom, but the time-wise, I'd start looking at what do I have to pay for and when? And maybe I could get more with different pots of money. Maybe there's a way to get, that's stuck on instruments, but maybe there's a way to get instruments. But it does take looking at what it is, what did we ask for, what's getting approved. It's a lot of thinking, but it may be worth, I think it is worth our time, the budget committee's time, but to look at how do we get the biggest bang for a buck? I'm also not, I'm not getting this where we order, or if school districts are putting something, if they're saying to the government that they're using money and yet they're putting it in another fund and not using the money, I don't want to do that. So we're going to have to use the money for what it is we say we use the money for, so that everybody's doing their taxes. You have to have a receipt that says this is what I bought when they come and ask you next year. You know, this proves that. I want us, I'm sure all of us, we want to be able to give that receipt when it's asked for.
Especially since fiduciary is a big part of the board's job.
Exactly.
I would feel way more comfortable
Yeah.
understanding, that's why the budget committee was formed, is
Or
to
if we
help
get the money, it goes
understand
somewhere it's supposed to go.
that process. And I know I asked to see money for that and didn't get it.
So I think that's where, when you give us these details, is when we can look at, well, there's this, and not to be pie in the sky, but if there's a way to finance things creatively, then that's what we want to look at.
And we throw this line in of the flex teacher that is being paid for federal money into this budget, I think is confusing. I know it's confusing to me. So I'm like, why would that even be on?
The only reason I put it in there is it's been a topic of discussion, and I
Right.
just wanted to find, if I'm going to show this tier of additions, but at board meetings, Kurt made it mention of it earlier, Mark had alluded to it earlier. I don't want to just say, oh, these are the additions, and then next board meeting, somebody say, wait a second, we've been talking about this fitness room coordinator, you didn't put that on the slide, what's going on here? So the only reason that I'm talking about these things is because we have been talking about flex, and we have been talking about a fitness room coordinator. And if we're talking about these potential additions to our staff, I don't want to just say, okay, I'm just talking about budget additions, completely ignoring those two, and then being asked later, well, where are they? Where are we putting them?
But
You know what I
that
mean?
was, that's not in our general fund budget, in our.
Understand that, but I put them on there just so we know these are the considerations, but these are the ones we're putting in the federal aid. That's the only reason I put them on there, is because we are talking about them. So I think it's important that we understand where they are currently being considered.
And personally, I think the flex TA or whatever it was, the counselor should be put under the federal money, because if we cut our flex program because we don't have the money, that person would probably be taken away too. Instead of funding it, and we would get a different account, it might be the same person. But to pull anything that has to do with the flex out to their money.
So your thought is to put
Yes.
both of the flex in the same place. So if we pull the flex, then all the flex is full.
Yes. I mean, if I was doing a personal budget, that's what I would do.
So
I agree.
So I'm thinking, so the budget committee has some direction to go in. If any board members have any concerns, that they send it to Ina and Ryan and Randy, so we have that information to work on, of the budget. That's not fair.
Next board meeting is the 12th, which is Tuesday, just to give everybody a heads up. So if we do want to meet, it's got to be either tomorrow, this weekend, which I doubt you guys want to do, or Monday, or Tuesday right before the meeting, just to forward thinking.
And when do we need to vote on the budget? By
I'd like to do it by
I'll take the weekend.
Sunday, 9 a.m. breakfast, you're cooking?
let me know. I make mean hash browns at the toaster.
We ate Pop-Tarts the other day, just before morning.
Monday at 5:30 for budget committee?
No.
No,
Anybody up for, well, for me, it's either before the board meeting or tomorrow.
about 5 o'clock, Tuesday.
Is that enough time to come?
But I don't know.
What time-
I can't-
what time
there's
is that
sports
board meeting?
contests. I'm sorry,
What time is that board meeting? Is it 6 or 6:30?
it's at 6. We could push the board meeting.
Yeah, can we move the board meeting to 6:30? Give us some time.
Did you say actually we can't? I know in
Yeah, we got
hours,
speakers
those
up at 6.
hours before a board meeting always end up really tight. I always feel like we don't finish. I feel like we have loose ends and have to run out. So we
Well, we-
could or couldn't move the board meeting to 6:30.
What's that?
We could or could not make that meeting a 6:30
could-
meeting.
I got to see we have our speaker coming Tuesday, I told him 6, but I can see if he call it 6:30.
Okay. So you'll,
So that's
Let us know if
so
that-
it looks like Tuesday before the board meeting.
yeah,
Okay. When's the earliest to go?
Tuesday, I can be there 4:15.
Nicole
4:30.
probably.
Well, it's just Tristan's very first baseball game, so I feel guilty missing it, but I mean, it is what it is.
I'm also available tomorrow.
We'll just do Tuesday at 4:15.
You haven't been saying anything. You are on this committee.
I have 6 meetings Tuesday already, so
Oh.
life is what it is at this point.
So are you?
Whenever you make it.
Is anybody available for tomorrow, meeting tomorrow?
I'm leaving to that.
Okay.
But that, you can leave it.
No, you gotta be there.
No, you skipped the last one.
Yeah.
On Monday, I'm available at 7 and after on Monday.
Again, the latest to vote on the budget is the 12th. Or that's
No, that's
the
fine.
preference, is the preference. Yeah, look at that.
Easter break is kind of jammed us up.
Sunday work.
Yes, you ran away.
Okay, how about we come back to a meeting date and continue our meeting? That sounds like a better idea to me. This is stressing me out.
Like to what time?
Like our.
Figure out time later.
4:12 is the budget adoption.
So come back to it. you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, come back to
Okay,
time
all right,
later.
because you guys have waited all night. Are you good? Ready to run? Okay. Coxsackie-Athens Teacher Association update.
Good evening. We're here tonight as CATA co-presidents and on behalf of all CATA members. To say that the past 2 years have been challenging would be an understatement, to say the least. Working with students during a pandemic has been the most difficult time to be a teacher, nurse, or counselor in any of our lifetimes. And yet, our members consistently rose to the occasion while putting our own health and the health of our families at risk at one of the only districts that was almost 100% of the time in person, a fact that the district likes to point out. We are the only Greene County School District and one of less than 5 in the entire capital region that was able to avoid going fully remote. And that is thanks to the work of our members. Throughout the global pandemic, we continue to provide a good, solid education for all of our students, including those in the room with us, those that were joining remotely, and sometimes both at the same time in dynamic instruction that was adding new and difficult challenges similar to building an airplane while in the air. Just within the last few months, we were still on the front lines of dealing with social distancing, masking, and limited ability to share materials with students. All of this while trying to keep ourselves and our families safe. Our members worked beyond our contract hours to put together materials for in-person, remote, and dynamic instruction, contacting students and parents, and trying to be a calming, stable voice in a world that had everyone on edge. Besides teachers, our nurses worked late nights and weekends as the point people in the district for reporting COVID cases and coordinating notifications to students and staff to ensure everyone was as safe as possible. Our members were the ones holding the system together, building and maintaining personal connections, and making sure school remained a safe and welcoming place for all students. Our contract expired last June, but we worked with the district to postpone bargaining until school started to return to normal, and more importantly, school funding and finances had been stabilized, which is evident because the district is in better financial shape now than before the pandemic. Our proposal has no impact on the district's taxpayers, but yet we have been told the board does not want to provide even remotely close to what we are asking. CATA members should be fairly compensated for the work we do every day, and especially for our heroic efforts keeping students safe and providing a solid education during the pandemic. We deserve a fair contract. Thank you.
All right, just, thank you. And everyone for staying so long. We have, just want to acknowledge the correspondence from 2 folks that are on your list, and that all of us have gotten copies of. And if he hasn't already. I need a superintendent's recommendations, personnel matters, motion to approve P1, 2A, B, C, D. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Which just brings us to future meetings. And I know we wanted to discuss a couple of committees, negotiation and innovation. I think the innovation doesn't need to be an executive. So wondering about questions from people about the task force, when it's going to meet. And wondering if, I was wondering, should we have the innovation committee meet once your team has responded with the all the ideas that came up from the task force. And how we left it was those ideas were going to be discussed by the admin team in terms of are we doing them? Can we do them? What would be the cost? What would be the barriers, kind of thing. So like a discussion of that, and then they bring that back to us. And then if the innovation team, so I'm suggesting then the innovation team meets and looks at that and then makes a plan for the task force to come back together so that there's a plan and we're not just having 30 people come back together. That's my suggestion. All right, mention that to you, but I don't know.
Well, in my discussions with Randy, we were waiting on Randy to inform us that the admin team has that list compiled. And I think in my discussion with Randy, we were focusing on the last week of April. To have the, was that the innovation committee, correct? Or the task force?
Yeah, or both,
Yeah,
Time of the week.
the sooner the better, that we move this along, in my opinion.
Carrie's your meeting Monday. Yeah, so we're actually bringing the teachers into this organizing of all those ideas. So there's be teachers involved in creating that, what's called organizing all the ideas. Okay, then we can bring that back to innovation. We'll do that Monday or start on Monday. Okay.
So then that'll get back.
Yep, so our hope is the innovation committee can meet right after Easter break, and then task force. You know, we can set that task force date ahead of time so he knows about it, but.
Right, yeah, I'd like to see something go out to the task force itself to let them know where we stand in this and what we're doing, and so they know sooner than later.
I just didn't know if we were prepared what are we gonna ask them to do? Do we have an idea yet? That's what I wonder if the committee needs to. look
Right,
at.
yes.
You know, well, I guess we could send out a date.
That's like.
We could send out a date and then the committee could meet and talk about, well, what happens on that
Yeah,
date?
that's my
Yeah,
understanding.
yeah. Thank you. Okay, future meetings, presentation of budget workshop next Tuesday, April 12th, right here, 6 o'clock. OC's vote and regular meeting Tuesday, April 26th, 6:30 AJA. Annual vote Tuesday, May 17th, 1 to 9. The regular meeting after that, Thursday, May 19th, 6:30 PM here. So nothing else. Motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss negotiation. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Thank you both.